Does your snatch technique suck? Well, I bet you're making one of the mistakes that some of these lifters are making in this video. You guys sent in your snatch for form check and technique reviews, and we're going to be doing a couple of those on today's episode in part 1 of the snatch form check review. Now, the first lift is a very, very common mistake. The real thing we're looking at here is that as soon as he pulls off the floor, the shoulders are really moving aggressively back behind the barbell. So why is this an issue that if our shoulders are moving back, we're causing some issues that will potentially make heavier weights much harder to lift or really unsuccessful? The main thing to think about here and to conceptualize is that the barbell has a separate center of mass when it's on the floor, and you have a separate center of mass and you're individually balanced when you're in that starting position. But as soon as the barbell leaves the floor, you end up with this kind of combined center of balance. However, most of the time the barbell is going to be at or in excess of your body weight, or hopefully it will be once you get sufficiently strong enough, and it's going to exert a force, or it's going to seem like it's exerting a force on you, which results in your body weight coming forward. Now, it's not really exerting a force on you in some fashion. In reality, what's happening is the barbell is pulling you forward because it wants to get back to the ground, but due to the nature of how you're built, this pulls you forward. So what you need to do is pull the barbell back towards you. Now, the interesting thing here is that a vertical bar pat isn't the right bar pat. A vertical bar pat means that your balance, your center of mass, the barbell center of mass are moving away from each other. So if you pull a barbell straight up, this is actually getting further away from your center of balance. What you need to do is move the barbell towards your center of balance. You need to converge them, but the best way to do this is bring it back towards your hip. Now, the issue here, so if we see that at the knee position, we'll see that this lifter shoulders are behind the barbell. Now, why is this an issue? If our shoulders are behind the barbell, this lets us know that the barbell is in front of us. And if the barbell is in front of us, there's only a few options that we can keep to make sure that we give an attempt at finishing the lift. And what generally happens is the hips will come in too soon, and we'll lean back behind the barbell. And this will often result in a big swing of the barbell. The barbell might slow down, or we might miss the snatch out front. It's Haircut Owen interrupting Yeti Owen for just a quick second. In the link below, we have created our 30-day guide to weightlifting essentials. This is everything we think of that you need to know about weightlifting, whether you're beginner, advanced, or intermediate. Click it in the link below. It'll send you one email per day. You will not regret it. So eventually, once weights get heavy enough, what will happen is that eventually we won't be able to exert enough force on the barbell, and we're going to miss it out front. It'll be too heavy. So what we need to look at here, first of all, one of the main things we need to adjust is the at the knee position. So I like the start position. I'm pretty happy with the positions that we're hitting in the snatch currently, but as soon as we begin pulling, the shoulders are moving back. Now, there's a few ways we can adjust this, and there's a couple of cues that we can use, and I'm always of the opinion that while there is some bad cues, there's technically no cue off the table. All we're looking for is an outcome, and whatever inputs you put into the system gets the desired outcome, then that's fine by me. This is just simply language. We're looking for very definitive biomechanical changes. So whatever you say to get a job done, if it gets it done in some fashions, that's okay. Now, obviously, communication comes into effect in your pedagogy. So if you're bad at teaching people and bad at communicating what you want, you're not going to get a good outcome. So what we want to focus on here is a couple of different things are possible. One, we could just simply say, keep your shoulders over the barbell off the floor. Some lifters find this really intuitive. If you think about covering the barbell all the way to the hip with your shoulder and torso, this might sufficiently solve the problem and we're A-okay. Other lifters might need to think about actually pulling the barbell back towards them off the floor to ensure that the shoulders stay in front. Both of these will, depending on the lifter, give you the desired effect. But the main thing we want is the shoulders staying in front of the barbell. As soon as the barbell leaves the floor, we want the shoulders in front. And then as the barbell reaches the knees, the shoulders are actually further in front of the barbell, ideally. Secondary technique here then is we're bending the arms as we get to the hip. There's a couple of reasons we don't want to do this. One, it generally slows the barbell down, and we want the opposite when we're getting the barbell to the hip. We want the barbell speeding up. The second thing is that usually if we bend with our arms at the hip, so if our arms are bent pulling at the hip, we're reducing essentially the available upper body musculature available to us to turn the barbell over. The upper body is super engaged in turning the barbell over. We're really active when we're turning the barbell over. So we do this by pulling with the traps, then with the arms. However, if we've disjointed the sequence by pulling with our arms first, it's hard for us to fully use our traps, and then it's very hard for us to finish through by turning that barbell over. Sometimes this is coached as there's a weightless moment or the barbell just floats up. This is not the case. You are always actively pulling on that barbell. You're either pulling up or pulling under or both of those are happening at the same time. So we don't want to bend the arms. Unfortunately, the remedy for bending the arms, the only thing we've seen fix it after years and years of coaching, is you have to work on reps where you don't bend your arms. There's no mobility issue. There's rarely a strength issue. It just has to be practiced. You need to practice good reps. That's the only way we can fix arm bend, is by practicing reps where you don't bend your arms. Slow pull snatches might help. Maybe some pause reps might help as well, but you just have to do repetitions where you don't bend your arms. Here's a good example of the problem we're working on, and that is the barbell again being too far out in front. And you can see as a result then on some of these misses, we're not able to exert enough force, and we either jump forward, jump back, or we end up missing the barbell out front. So if we look at what's causing that in this particular scenario, it's the same problem, but we have different sources of that problem. So you may remember in the last lift that we liked the start position, but in this lift, what we have is two issues at the start contributing to this issue. So if we look at the barbell when he's on the floor, so we're trying to pause here in the start position, we can see the miss there. So in the start position, there's two major errors that you're probably making these errors in your own lifting. One, the hips are too low, and as a result, hips that are too low generally push the knees too far forward. The second issue is that the barbell is too far over the base of his foot. This is too close to his ankle. So what this does, when the hips are too low and the barbell is too close to you, as soon as the barbell leaves the floor, the knees are too far forward and the barbell has to move forward to get back to you. So the barbell can't move back if it's too close to you. So if you imagine the barbell's on the floor, if it moves back, you're just going to fall over. So the barbell must move out before it moves back towards you. However, this is very, very inefficient. If the barbell is really heavy, you won't be able to move it back far enough in enough time, because you are time limited, because there is a certain speed that needs to be hit for these weights. So as a result, the barbell is going to be out in front and you're going to miss it out in front. You're going to jump forward or maybe jump back. So you see the barbell will immediately move forward as soon as it leaves the floor. So there's two remedies we need to fix here in this one. First of all, we need the hips higher. This will reduce the knee angle. First of all, we need to lift the hips up higher. So we'll make this angle here at the back a larger angle. The longer your legs are, the larger this angle needs to be for you. The shorter your legs are, the smaller this can be, because this will not have your knees as far forward and your shoulders will be on top, or preferably slightly in front of the barbell. The second thing we need to do is we need to move the barbell out over the base of your big toe. So when generally we want that barbell straight up from the base of your big toe, or the metatarsal phalangeal joints, if you care to know. But what we're looking for is to ensure that the barbell has enough space to move back towards you off the floor. Your knees are sufficiently bent and your hip is of a sufficient height that you can use your legs optimally and your back, but neither the back or the legs are predominantly moving the barbell. We want a good combination of both of those. But we also don't want the barbell too far away from you, because obviously if the barbell is much too far away, we won't be able to exert enough force to pull it back towards you. So we want this perfect position and perfect hip height. So generally we want hamstrings around parallel. If you're taller, hamstrings will be slightly higher. And then the barbell needs to be about above the base of your big toe. Your shins can actually be close, so we're not worried particularly about shin angle here. We're worried about bar and foot position. And then we should be able to correct or improve upon these positions. Here's a really common problem, and it's a really good opportunity to learn about the tempo of the lift. Now, the Soviets coined the term a 2-beat rhythm during the snatch. And what does that mean? It means that the first pull is fast and the second pull is faster. But we can see here from this lifter that he's pulling as fast as possible off the floor. And generally what happens is this actually ensures that the barbell is going to be slower or too slow by the time you get to the hip. The barbell needs to move fast off the floor, because obviously we can't move it too slow. But we don't want to move it so fast that we don't have the option to hit sufficient speed as we get towards the hip. So what happens is we need to ensure that we're pulling smoothly off the floor. We need to pull as fast as we can. That still allows the second pull to move faster. So we want acceleration. We want that barbell going faster and faster as it's moving up along the pull. So we need to pull smoothly off the floor. But then once we pass the knee, we need to move really quickly. What's the issue with pulling too fast off the floor? Well, essentially, you run out of the capacity to move the barbell really quickly. The barbell starts slowing down. If you put maximum effort into the floor, you generally can't sustain this at meaningful weights. So you need to ensure that the acceleration is happening as you're pulling, not immediately off the floor. You need to give a smooth change in speed. The second issue with pulling too fast off the floor is that we're generally going to lose positions. If we aggressively pull the barbell off the floor, what will usually happen is we're going to lose our back position and we're going to lose our leg position as soon as we're pulling. So what will generally happen is our back will pull as soon as we leave the floor, or our hips might shoot up, our knees might collapse, our arms might bend. Any combination of issues might happen when we pull too quickly. So this smoother pull off the floor ensures that we will have this consistency in technique, and this consistency then lends itself to better quality lifting. Here again is another good example. So a big jump back is a really common error for a lot of people. Why is a big jump back an issue? So jumping back is something you might see in lifters, or jumping forward might happen sometimes. But the reason it's not ideal is because we're adding a lot of inconsistency to the barbell, and we're adding a lot of inefficiency. So the first one, if we look at inconsistencies. So when we swing the barbell, what we do is we end up having this J curve here, which happens to everyone's snatch, which is fine. But in addition, when we swing the barbell too much, we add a larger barbell pat here. This, first of all, makes it very, very inefficient. So if you were to get that J curve or that S curve, the extension from the hip, the overhead position, if you were to draw that out into a straight line, you would see that that is longer than a barbell that is not swung. A barbell that is moved through that optimal extension will have a longer barbell pat compared to a barbell that is done correctly. So a barbell that is swung too much has a longer barbell pat if you were to draw it out in a straight line. And as a result, when this is, laid bare, you're shown that you're putting a very inefficient barbell pat. You're wasting a lot of energy on heavier weights, and eventually these will get so heavy that you're wasting far too much energy and you won't be able to efficiently make the rep. The second issue with a jump back is that when we jump back, we're jumping back underneath a barbell, and this is, as a result, is going to make you more inconsistent. So if you think about it like this, jumping down underneath a barbell, ideally you just go extend up and you jump straight down, you land with your feet out, barbell lands in the overhead position. We're in a nice consistent catch position here. We can learn this repetition. However, if we're swinging a barbell pat, what often happens is that when we're jumping back behind the barbell, we're never going to be able to exactly and precisely hit the same position every time. Usually what's going to happen is we're going to add some inconsistencies, and the difference between landing in the right position with the barbell, or the barbell being too far out in front, or the barbell swinging out the back, is going to be very small. So your margin for error here when we jump back a lot, especially as weights get heavier, coupled with the inefficiency, is going to make for a worse quality snatch. So every time we jump back under a barbell, we're essentially hoping and praying and trying to hit the lotto that we hit the right position. Every inch further we jump back, the more inconsistent we're making this and the harder we make it to hit a successful lift. It doesn't make it impossible by any means, but it certainly makes it more difficult than it needs to be. So when we jump back, we're always adding inconsistency and inefficiency. So what are we looking at causing the issue here? So one, again, we're back to that start position. Those hips are slightly too low, knees are too far forward. So then as we get to the knee position, or just as we get closer to contact, shoulders are far too behind the barbell, hips are coming into the barbell too early. So then we're getting this big swing and we're jumping back from where we started. So you'll see there's quite a big deviation from where he starts to where he finishes. He starts at approximately the line here and ends up, if you look at his toes, we're jumping back about 3 inches there, which is a lot, which is more than we'll ever need or ever want to do. So make sure that we are, first of all, changing that start position. We're looking for hamstrings above parallel. So remember, for longer legs, larger angle here. So hamstrings should probably be around where this, the bottom of the hamstrings should be around where this gray line is in these leggings. And then as we're going through that second pull, we're ensuring that the shoulders are staying in front for longer and that the barbell is moving back towards the hips, and the hips aren't coming in too soon. So you'll see that the hips are coming in much too early. As soon as the hips come in, think about the second pull being over. So essentially, this is what we'll kind of conceptualize in our brain. We want to make the second pull last as long as possible. When does the second pull end? Try and think about the second pull ending as soon as the hips come forward. So we want to be as patient as possible with those hips. The more patient we are, the greater time we're allowing for that barbell to end up over our center of balance, and then the better we're able to exert force on the barbell. Now here we've got, again, similar problems, but as you'll see, there's multiple different causes for why something like this might happen. So if we watch the lift first, we'll see that we get a reasonable jump back, again, more than we want. Look, I know you'll sometimes watch this and think, oh, but so-and-so jumps back. First of all, you're not that lifter, whoever you're talking about. Secondly, even in that lifter's case, we're probably looking at something that would add a certain percentage of efficiency to their lifting and possibly add a couple of kilos. It depends on the lifter. It depends on what those issues are. No lifter thinks they have perfect technique. Some lifters have very, very good technique. Some lifters succeed in spite of technical issues, but they're always striving for better quality technique. Now, what's happening here in the case of Alfie? So if we watch the start position, see how just before he begins pulling, we have a pretty good hip height. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with these angles here. Back is on a lot of rounding in the upper back, too much flexion in the upper back. But then as soon as we begin pulling, we drop the hips down. This moves the knee forward. This makes it harder for the knees to get out the way. Then when we get to the at the knee position, we'll see the shoulders are behind the barbell. And then our hips are too far into the barbell. So instead of being slightly further back, the barbell should probably be back around here. We're bringing those hips into the barbell, and then we're getting this jump back and away from the barbell. So what we need to focus on first is the start position. So we would want him to actually start here. Don't drop the hips down. Extend the chest like he's doing when he hits a lower position. So good extension the chest. Keep that back up, but keep the hips higher. Then this should make sure that the knees are slightly out of the way, or they are hopefully further out of the way than we need to, and we don't necessarily need to think about any extra cues there. Only once we've changed the start position will we start to look at adding an additional cue of possibly moving the knees further back if needed via intentional moving of the knees back. So we're always trying to fix things in the most efficient way possible. We don't want to be changing start position, then changing the knee position, and then changing the hip position. We need to block changes, and we need to make them really small. We need to implement those changes. We need to implement changes that are in the first order of issue. Sometimes they will then eliminate other issues, so we don't have to work on it. So which issue you work on first, which one of the causes you work on first, can be very important, because if you get the right cause first, you might eliminate other technical issues. Only once we have satisfactorily made a technical change that is something that we think, okay, I'm happy with this is second nature to me now, I don't need to think about it, then do we move on to our secondary and tertiary causes. So start with the start position here, then we might start thinking about moving the knees back, and then lastly we'll probably need to focus on keeping the hips back for longer and try and hopefully fix the jump back behind the barbell. So I hope you found this useful. If you would like someone else to do your own training, if you would just like to take the thinking about of your training and just get training done, just come into the gym, get your sessions done, check out the Sika Strength app on iOS and Android in the link down below. Plenty of weightlifting programs on the app, mainstream, specific snatch, clean and jerk programs. Obviously lots of our squatting and strength programs. The coaching logic will apply after sessions if something goes wrong, so the preceding sessions are corrected for you. Video library, AI coach bot. There's a lot of great stuff on the app. You can run 2 programs at any one time, and you can switch between these at any point during your subscription. So check it out in the link below.